morning, I call to order the 226th meeting of the Equal Employment Practices Commission. Should we get an approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes of November 29th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, should we move to the audit update?
Yes, so far we've completed 25 audits for the year and it's December 17th, so we still have some agencies that have some other materials that they have to give us. However, we anticipate completing some more audits. We have 8 agencies that are in compliance monitoring, and we should be able to complete those for the rest of the year. We're not sure yet, it depends on their responses.
So
I'm
you
coming
think
into the
that-
compliance monitoring
A
report.
little.
Okay.
What I
That
have
will
is
give
slightly
you-
different from what I've provided you, so.
Yeah,
But that would give you a maximum of 33 for the year. 25 and 8.
possibly.
Let me get my, sorry.
Should we pause or do you want me to just kind of
Why
give
don't
you
we-
a?
Should we sign this?
Yes, please.
How many did you say, 33?
33. Well, that's my math, but I don't know, you know.
Right, so we're not sure in terms of their responses. However, in a year that, we did the hearing, we had our director of compliance out for half the year. We didn't even have a director of compliance. And then the administrator of audits was out for the other half of the year, and they were both out together. I think we're doing pretty good.
Fine.
So, right.
I mean, if you do the math, what is our number supposed to be? Something like 36?
Right,
Right.
like 35.
35.
It depends, 35 or 36.
So, and more specifically here, you were doing a new audit, because this is the first time we have done a sexual harassment prevention audit. And so that, and given 33, you're still going to be able to complete all of the people that you are required under the charter to audit within the 4-year period of time. So I'm not particularly concerned about it. We've done,
Right.
and you had a substantial hearing with positive feedback on it, and you spent certainly in not only the amount of time in preparation, but in its analysis and learning from it, and then going out to the people who attended, responding to questions and responding to providing materials,
Right.
all of which takes a labor. So I'm
Right.
certainly not concerned.
So we
And
have.
there were years we never met on mandate.
Right.
Let's
Those
not go
years
back
are-
to that.
Right.
That's true.
We're not going back there. We have some community boards, about 8 of them that we sent PDs, and their responses are due. We also have the follow-up employment practices audits that we started for the Bronx County Public Administrator, the Richmond County Public Administrator, and the Queens County DA's office. Those audits are in progress. We don't anticipate the follow-up audits. Well, it depends. The Richmond County Public Administrator has not really been responsive, and I think both the public administrator and the deputy public administrator will be gone as of December 31st. So we're probably gonna have to deal with the new administration for that one. We're looking at ways to tackle that issue.
Who appoints them? Richmond
The
County.
surrogate court.
Okay. So is there a reason why they're gone, or do we know, or is it a political reason?
Yes, I think there's a new.
I believe there's been a surrogate's judge, I believe. I think that was the reason for the turnaround in their staff, but hopefully there'll be, new staff in, will be more.
How large is their staff?
5 people. Right
There,
now.
I think there are about 7 people in total. And 2 one is the public administrator and one's the deputy public administrator. Cause I think they're the bigger ones between them and the Bronx. The Bronx was 5.
They either have 5 or 7, so it's not a huge staff.
Yeah. And can I ask, so you said they're not they have not been terribly responsive. How far have they gotten?
I had a conversation where I spoke to both the public administrator and the deputy public administrator, and they weren't responsive, but during the conversation, they were amenable. The thing is, we're low on the priority list
Wow.
Right.
for, you know, the fact that they're leaving and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, and tying up ends.
So would it be, so should we just pause it then and just come back to them maybe later in the spring?
Well, what I think we can do is, the agreement that we came to, I spoke with Jen, it was Jen and Judith and myself, is to suspend, well, not suspend, but issue the determination and then give them probably 2 months to respond. And we can send a month within send a letter within the 2 months saying, we understand that, you know, the administration has changed, these are the issues, because I looked at the issues and the new administration would still have to issue an EEO policy statement. They would still have to account for employees being trained. They would still have to issue an EEO policy or determine whether or not they follow the
But in
mayor's EEO
fairness,
policy.
let's go back to being somewhat practical. So as of December 31st, Jake and Ben leave. And assuming the world is perfect, by January 7th, Marla and Karen arrive. They're gonna have a whole lot of other things to do rather than like find out where the office is and where the pens are before they can even respond to anything and to find out who has custody of anything or where the documents are or have any, we don't even know if they have any EO experience or they even know what to do. I'm at suspending it and coming back in. We're dealing with a small unit, we're dealing with not a lot of data collection, but a lot of need to understand what processes and procedures are. And you're not giving them any time. 2 months is not nothing happens in the city for 7 months before an election and 7 months after an election. It's sort of working, just a working knowledge. You essentially are looking at a new election and a new team coming in. I don't know why the surrogate has changed. Surrogates are elected. So whether it's a result of the election and that's the reason that the old surrogate didn't win and this is a new surrogate, and therefore the surrogate now has to appoint the new public. I mean, I don't know that it's gonna happen as quickly as we are assuming it's gonna happen. That
Well,
there's even gonna be somebody to respond to our request.
So, here's the deal. So, first of all, okay, so we're dealing with 5 employees. They haven't had any hiring for the entire time that we've been auditing them. So, the employees that are there have been there for years. And the deputy public administrator, who's been there for, I think, 10 years, is one of the newest employees.
Wow.
And then the public administrator, I think, was
So
there
there
for
should
about 3
have
years.
everything that you're asking for, should have been there in place.
Right, so what I'm thinking is this, because what I did was, I also eliminated all of the standards that were not practical. Like, we're not gonna look to see whether or not they did an adverse impact study, because they only have 5 people. And they're not all in the same job group. Or, besides the public administrator and deputy. And then we're not gonna look to see whether or not they did, underutilization, or where the stuff about using an applicant log may not apply because they haven't had any hires. But I think it would help the new administration to look at the findings that have been issued. And if we want to give a certain amount of time, maybe if not 2 months, 3 months for them to respond, using that as a baseline, they can then build a new program in which we're only holding them responsible for distributing a policy statement against discrimination and sexual harassment, making sure that employees are trained, appointing someone to handle EEO, all of those things they would have to do, and they can use the audit as a guideline to then put those practices in place. So I think it would actually help them to build a program from the ground up. If there was nothing done, then to go back in and audit them and say, what have you done? Because they probably wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah,
So I'm really for, and it's up to the commission, for issuing the report, saying, putting in as a special contingency that there is an administration that's leaving or whatever we
It's
may need to
changing,
say.
if you need additional
Right.
time, let us know.
Right, and then maybe giving them 3 months and we'll
Yeah.
check back at the end of the quarter
That's
to
correct.
see that they implemented, right, because I think it
To
would
see
be
that there's even somebody there.
Right,
I mean, I'm cynical enough, or sarcastic enough, or since, we still don't have a chair 5 years into it, so. I mean, our own experience would indicate that there are some issues in appointment and lag thereof, and priorities.
I think, I'm not sure, I think a new person may have been identified, but I'm not sure. So, I can check into it and I can let the commission know before we send the letter out.
Yeah, because if there's nobody there and it's you'd be talking to a vacancy.
Okay.
And giving a vacancy 3 months may not be enough time.
I believe out of the applicable standards, there's only 12. I recall reviewing the standards that were applicable to them on Friday, and again, they were just basic EEO program standards, appoint an EEO officer.
Understood, I have no
So,
problem with that, I'm just
No,
being
I totally
practical.
agree. No, I
I'm just being practical, that I understand that it makes sense if on January 7th, Karen and Marla appear. But I'm suspect as to whether or not
right,
on January 7th, Karen and Marla appear.
right.
And even if they have identified somebody, I'm not sure that the vetting of that human being and putting them on, you should excuse the expression, even if identified, between that and actually being on payroll, could be as much as 2 months.
Yeah, if they haven't appointed someone as the public administrator, they're not gonna be concerned about appointing an EEO officer. They kinda need someone in charge of the office before they can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
okay, so that's clear.
So, that's the story with them, and so we expect a delay for that one,
And that's one of the 8.
correct.
Okay, so we're really down to
However-
7 and 32.
However, no, we have, and that's in addition to the
That's
8
in addition to
agencies
the
that
8.
are in compliance monitoring.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So, we may be able to wrap up some agencies without going through a compliance monitoring period, which would be even better.
Which would increase your number.
Right.
Okay.
So, and we have 50 agencies on the audit plan for next year. We're
Wow.
doing a lot of internal work. The audit has already been established. We already have, Dennis is gonna show you guys this great internal database system that he came up with, later on in the meeting. And, we have everything set up in Teammate, we have everything set up in SurveyMonkey, and so we should be able to do things.
You should okay, that much faster.
Right.
So when you say 50 agencies on audit plan, the audit plan again is still the sexual harassment
Yes.
prevention? Okay, so just so, that's the audit plan that we're going forward with. At the end of next year, if you've got 33 this year and 50 next year, will have completed half of the city agencies by then?
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
At which point you could have a semi-report, which is not a final report, but you could do a report at that end, putting it into your annual plan of what your findings have been so far on the issue,
yes.
which I think would make good sense to me. I mean, I don't know about anybody else,
That
but
sounds good.
Well, we're also going to be looking to establish that other audit that we spoke about last
Yes.
time. So, in the 3rd year, we may be able to finish up the sexual harassment audits and then start with the new audit. But we have to establish the metrics
Right.
for.
well,
the new
we'll
audit.
talk about
So,
that again.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I am incredibly pleased and almost enthusiastic about our ability to do it quickly because we're using these new my term, toys, that we worked hard on creating and working with, so we shouldn't call them toys, but they are tools
Tools,
as
yeah.
opposed to toys.
Yes. Okay, compliance, update.
Okay, so to piggyback what, Sharice was saying, right now we have, completed, in addition to borough, community boards, we have 3 on the last agenda, we have another 4 on this agenda. We've also got 6 agencies that are completely in compliance. Most of them started in November, were completed by December. And those certificates are on the agenda for you guys to sign today, so that's a total of 10 for today. That brings our number to 25, like what Sharice is saying. We have an additional 8, agencies in compliance monitoring. 2 only need to finish, up by issuing their final agency head memo. And we've been in contact with both of those agencies, and, you know, due to the end of the year, you know, people aren't around, but we are confident, I'd like to say confident, that we might even be able to get them done by December 31st, which would bring our number to 27. After that, there's another 6 agencies with corrective actions. Some of them only have as little as 3 of the 6, or 6. I think some of them will probably be done in January, maybe February the latest. And all of these agencies entered in compliance in either October or November. So they're well under the 6-month period of time. In addition, we audited 15 community boards. Like I said, 7 have already been issued certificates of compliance, either last meeting or this meeting. And then there's an additional 8 boards who have corrective actions, but their corrective actions are basically minimal, where if they do 1 or 2 actions, they'll resolve all of them. So if we can get them to finish those up by the end of the year, that's an additional 8 more on top of the 25 that we have right now. So by December 31st, there is a possibility that we can be over the 30 number.
That's great.
Easily. So, yep, right now, the analysts are working with the agencies to wrap up the last few, corrective actions. I think the only ones that might be a little bit delayed, or we talked about this last meeting, is the Bronx Borough President's Office, because their EEO officer is on federal jury duty, and so we have to wait till she gets back to even work with her. And Office of Emergency Management, their response to the final determination is only due today, so they haven't really even entered technically compliance yet. So, but the rest we're working with, they've been very responsive, they wanna do well and hopefully wrap this up sooner rather than later, so.
Great. Any more discussion on the compliance report or resolution?
I don't think so. Like I said, these 10 that are here for your signature are the ones that we wrapped up.
I move to approve the compliance resolutions for Bronx Board numbers 6, 11 to 9, Office of the City Clerk, Financial Information Services Agency, the Office of Payroll Administration, the Office of Collective Bargaining, the Office of New York City Comptroller, and the Department of Buildings.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oops. I always forget to hit it. So. The
Alright,
next-
should we move to new business?
The next thing on the agenda, I'll have Dennis, I'm gonna be my T person, show you this great internal database system that we've been working on. It was pretty much his idea, but I've been giving him some information to put into it, so I'm excited and we're going to use it in the upcoming year.
Thank you. I don't know if we needed to, because I don't see it on here, do we need to discuss anything about the city council, and the,
Charter revision.
We're still working that out, not the charter revision, but the bill that just passed,
Yeah.
interest 755. Hi Dennis, can we give you more information about that
yeah,
at the
Yeah,
next
no
meeting?
problem, that's
Oh,
great.
sure.
Because we're also doing a report to OMB
Okay.
about the resources that we'll need
Yes,
in order to tackle that, with the bill passed.
of course.
So, yeah.
And hopefully you'll get your resources before their mayoralty changes.
They're signing papers.
Oh.
Maybe they.
We're almost done.
You gotta get it while spending is happening right here. Before the money disappears. Yeah, but- yes, these are all done, okay,
I'll take them if they're done.
yeah, these are done.
And I have
Thank
to
you.
sign. You might wanna just look them over because we
Yeah.
were shuffling them back and forth,
You wanna
in different
check?
stacks, yeah.
Of course.
Dennis, you can dim the lights. Thank you.
Commissioner Cabrera needs to sign this one.
Another one for you, yeah.
So, this is sort of an internal, what do we wanna call it? We're still we're voting on names for it today. We have acronyms that we came up with.
Christmas.
That's too late.
Like
Well-
Doris has her own name.
Yeah, we came up with some kinda little cute names for it that we have to vote on, but it's sort of an internal system for efficiency, that Dennis established. He has worked on this in his spare time, and he just wanted to create something where we could track things and tie up loose ends and be able to keep information in sort of one central place. So, you can go ahead, Dennis, and show them.
Alright, so, this system is based on the database system, and then, after we retrieve the data from the database, and then we will have the first part is called security login. After the security login, and then we can, all the employee from the EPC, they can do data search, and then they can run the report, and then they can also, management all the files or documents, which is internal. And there is some more feature which is under development right now, so I can present to you guys next time. So, the internal, Therese, do you mind I use your login?
No, you can go ahead.
And this is the internal system looks. On the main page, and then you will see, the left side is the menu for everyone, like the lower level user. They can, check the agency contact information. And then they can see like, what's the information for agency head and the principal EO professional.
So that's an,
I have
I'm just gonna
a dumb
piggyback on-
dumb question. So let's go back to the slide before. Where does the data come from?
Oh, the data is coming from our database system,
so,
So this is all the old stuff we've done?
yes,
No.
yeah,
so what this is if there needs to be a centralized location where everyone in the agency can find the same exact thing. So all agencies under our jurisdiction will be updated in that system. So let's say an audit starts tomorrow for the Department of Buildings, let's say. Mohini will make sure that the most current information for all of the agencies that are in there is in the system, because if the commissioner changed and the analyst is writing a letter to the commissioner, the analyst may write the old commissioner on there because maybe there was, for example, the public administrator.
Right.
Maybe there was, just a minute ago, there was another name for the public administrator and the letter may be outdated. But here, everyone will have access to the same information, so once they check it, it's correct. Before, it was just sort of like pieces of paper floating around, or you may have to go on the website.
So all the
or-
data, but I'm trying to understand what's in the database. So the current head of an agency is gonna be in the database.
And the
the da-
EEO people and anyone that we would have to contact.
And is it
But
is
is
it
it also
pulling from
gonna-
something, or are people hand entering it now? I guess it's like I thought that's what I was hearing. It's like, were these on Excel spreadsheets just like sitting around, And
Yes.
then you like
Mhm.
took them and put them into this thing?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm trying to like
Yes.
import all the Excel
Yeah.
data and then put it into the database.
Got it.
Alright, but, so the audits are not part of that database, or the audits are? Prior audits are in the database?
No, the prior audits are in teammate.
Okay, so
They're
the
on
da-
the
So this
agency.
database is essentially an administrative database?
Right, I
Well, why
don't
don't
think we
we
should
go
call it a
for-
database.
Yeah,
It's
let's
because we're calling
Okay.
it a database,
Yeah.
we haven't found a name for it yet. It's for efficiency. It's for efficiency in internal operations, so that everyone has access to the same information internally, and we're not getting information piecemeal.
Got it.
So
I'm
the
still
analyst and Mohini will be looking at the same information. Even though we
I'm
have
trying
it
to
on
figure
a
out
shared.
what the information is, so let me tell me what the data
So
is, that's
in-
why I went back to try
So
to
there
figure
are
it out.
different icons on the dashboard. This specific icon that they're gonna click into has to do with agency information. So, let me help you do this. In my Christmas sweater. No, I'm gonna go up here. So, this is my dashboard. So as an administrator, I have access to almost everything.
Right.
If an analyst logs in, they may not have access to all of these things. So, as an agency administrator, I can see all of the agency contact information for anyone that I wanna contact within, the city of New York and all of our specific contacts. It's kind of like, it could be an Outlook, but here, everyone is looking at the same thing. We have EPC's policies, so if you click in here, Dennis, anyone can access our code of conduct, our attendance, our code of conduct, our computer use policy, conflicts of interest, EEO policy, evacuation procedures, all of these things. These are what employees will see. Okay, you can click back out. There's the internal contact information, which, put your own name, Dennis, I don't know.
I think your name is better.
Okay, see, so, if it were a bigger agency, cause everybody knows that I'm here, but, my telephone number's in there or whatever. Okay, go back out. If, you can click on the file submitted. If someone, so that we can track, we have a lot of documents that go back and forth and back and forth. So if we wanna know, for instance, that, I don't know, Dennis submitted,
You want to check the system, the checking system?
yeah, like,
Oh, it should be under your menu. It's this.
sometimes we need to run a report on how many hands a document has gone through. This is really useful for like budget documents and the approvals that we've gotten internally. Even though we're a small place, we need to track it, because sometimes people are like, oh, I forgot that I was supposed to give you this document, or,
I forgot to send it to Sharice.
yeah, we can see exactly where the document went and who was the last person that had it. This is good for PDs, because we have a lot of drafts that we go through. It's good for, FDs, and it's good for anything that needs a lot of feedback, like, let's say we're writing, a response, or we're, like, for instance, what do you call it, that we did for the Charter Revision Commission? And we have a lot of edits that we're going through.
So can I ask on that stuff, like when you have documents that are essentially they're Word documents, right? Like most of these things. The things like the PD and the FD, are they sort of produced in Teammate? Cause you're
Yes.
pulling information from Teammate. So then this is attached to Teammate, like is it pulling those documents from there? Or like the Charter Review Commission, are you uploading it into this database? Like how does it?
We're not uploading it, it's merely for tracking,
I
and it's
see.
merely to,
So there's no documents,
Yeah,
right?
no
It's just like a
documents.
flow, I see.
so, right,
Yes.
all of the documents are already on the shared drive,
Right,
but this is tracking so that we can pull a report and see how many times a document
I'm just
has been
curious, like,
edited or.
but then it's like, are you, if this, I'm just asking like organization, like how do you know that from the document? Cause are you asking people to say like, I worked on the document so that it gets cataloged here? How does it know? How do you know
Yes.
of the people have.
They have to input it,
They do, okay.
because right now,
Uh-huh.
people say that they worked on a document,
Right.
or I may look and I may see you were the last person that worked on the document, but you may say, oh, no, I saved it as another thing, but it had a different version.
Yeah, right.
So the document I'm looking at may not, so there's a lot of, it's all pretty much for like efficiency.
No, I get that, I'm just curious
Yeah.
how you do it, like, how do you track that? Are you forcing people then to every single time they do a draft, to log in somewhere, so that you're capturing that information? I'm just at, like, there's like a.
Pretty much,
That's- okay.
is that how we're doing it, Dennis?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much,
right.
they have to log in,
Yes, okay,
and it's tedious, but it's the only way that we can know.
right, I
But
see.
are you making the versions A, B, C, and D so that you know that they've been
Yes.
changed?
Yes,
So, to get to a draft, it's like firewalled, and you have to log in to get access to it, and then it'll know,
Mhm.
that's what I want to know. That's-
because
that's
right
awesome.
now, also, on our internal shared drive, the analyst cannot delete documents from our shared drive, which causes a problem.
Right.
But because we handle such sensitive information and because people have access to it, I blocked all access to, employees can't delete any documents from the shared drive.
Okay.
So if they wanna save a new document, they have to save it as a new version. And they can't delete the old version, so they can't just save as and save over a document that's in there.
But you're able to delete documents.
Yes, only the administrators, it's a long story.
No,
Understood.
It's to protect information and it's to track what hands the document
Yes.
has been through.
Okay.
And here is where we can run a report.
So what you're doing essentially is technologically looking at the workload and the work product without having to ask questions. The documents, this will answer questions without having to be in a, for want of a better term, accusatory position,
Yes.
saying, what have you done, darling? So as opposed to having to ask that question, this will tell you what the darlings have done.
Right, so for the analyst specifically, the work is done in Teammate, but at the end of doing the work, it generates a report. Once the report has been generated, it becomes a Word document. At that time, that document is subject to being edited, but we have to keep track of the versions that the document has gone through, because I may remove something that Jen may say, no, that should actually be in here because, maybe we want to keep the, legal integrity of that statement. I don't know. There may be different things, and then we would track, okay, at this point, it went to Jen, okay, Jen was the last person that had the document, let's look at version whatever, that's the version that Jen had.
Okay.
It's, trust me.
I think it's gonna be very
Yes.
helpful during the audit process,
Yes.
because the
I think so.
analysts are working on multiple audits at the same time.
Yes.
And they're handing off their drafts to their managers for review, and then to legal for review, and then back and forth depending upon what those edits are. So rather than be like, who had this document last, it's very easy to just go in
Yes.
and
There's no
see,
question
so.
about it.
But I think it's gonna be really helpful during that process, because they're
You
both
are to be
juggling multiple.
commended, my dear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really wonderful,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, what else is in there that we can show?
The deadline part.
Oh, we also, this is great, came up with every month in there, the analysts and everyone in the agency will be able to access this page. And in January, we'll go in and put what the deadlines are, we'll set them up beforehand, so that everyone can look and see that in January we have these documents that have these deadlines. And they can look from now, like let's say, and we have to put them in, but for now, they can look at December and see that in December, this is gonna be due. So maybe in October, they can look at December and they can start working on things that may be due.
I have a dumb question.
Oh boy.
No,
Whenever
it
you
is a
say
dumb
that.
que- It really is a dumb question. So, we know that the police department has more employees than anybody else, and we now know that the Staten Island Public Administrator has probably among the fewest employees of anybody else. Is there any way to track the difference in the time that the analysis of the audit, or the audit will take?
Yes, but that's in teaming.
Okay, but.
That's
but
where
there-
they actually do the
So
audit.
we do know that auditing, a larger agency may indeed take more time, even though all we're asking for are numbers.
What do you mean all we're asking for?
Well, aren't we just asking for numbers as we look at the number of people that are there, the number of people that.
Oh, you mean sort of like an employment practices audit or
Yeah.
something?
Even
Um,
a sexual harassment audit, you're really asking for, one, the policy, which is a thing, and then you're asking for the number of people that have, requested or have reported harassment, and then what's happened with the harassment, and so so we're really asking for essentially numbers, cause you're not asking for, to look at what they've reported, you're asking for what happened to it, which again is a number, do you think, was there someone, was,
No, there's a lot of qualitative analysis that goes into the audit, so no, I wouldn't say that a larger agency would take less amount of time than a smaller agency, because it just depends on how efficient that EEO person is, or that agency is, period.
okay,
Smaller agencies, I would say, are probably less efficient than
I
the
think
larger
so.
agencies.
Because they wear multiple hats, and so
Right.
they're not as, it's not like their priority necessarily to make sure that, you know, the training schedule stays on par, or that people are, you know,
Okay.
being appointed the
Alright.
way they should, so. At the larger agencies, if that's their sole, a person's appointed, that's their sole job, that's their sole responsibility,
Right.
they tend to be more efficient, more organized, able to give the information to the analysts a lot quicker, know it off the top of their head without having to do research.
okay.
But it really depends on the agency.
Yeah.
Because we've had smaller agencies that have been very well organized, despite the fact that their EEO people have, you know, an alternate title as well.
Okay,
Right.
so this is gonna give
anything
you a
else,
this is gonna give you a better ability to look at everybody and everybody's schedule and know whether it's being done in a timely manner.
Well, I wouldn't say that, it helps them to do it in a timely manner, and
No,
it
but it
helps
helps
us
you.
track.
Yes, it helps you to oversee what's happening.
Right, and, also, there's a part in there for vendors where we can see, cause we've had, as you guys know, cause we have a different person that's handling the bills now, situations where a bill wasn't paid.
Right,
And when I say, okay, well, give me the background on what happened here. Oh, well, I sent it over to this place and I never checked, or whatever it might have been. But here, we can actually, he actually set it up, so we put all the vendors in there. We can look at, we can, actually key in information of when the vendor was contacted and what the result was. And it generates a report at the end. And so we can track back if a bill wasn't paid to the last time someone entered information regarding the bill, and then we can identify and speak to that person about what happened from that point on.
okay.
So it's gonna be very helpful in tracking, right, budget information also.
Welcome to the
Dennis.
21st century.
Thank you, Dennis.
Listen,
thank you
it's
so much.
all Dennis.
Another word in there.
No, well,
I kind of feel bad for him because every time he shows it, we're like, okay, but can you make it do this thing also? So then he has another task to try to see whether or not he can.
well,
Can put into the
it's
program.
really, I have no doubt that once you put it into place, you will find some other refinements,
Right.
once you see how it works, but congratulations, really,
Yes.
thank you
Thank you.
very, very much.
Good job.
Thank you for doing it on your own, for the entrepreneurial spirit that no one thinks exists in public service.
Thank you. I'm glad like this system like fully can like make the EPC can more efficient, and then
Thank you.
everyone can, yeah.
Charisse, having said that, having used my big my loud mouth to say that, I wonder if once you do it and have developed it, whether it's something that other agencies of like size, of which there are within the city, might find this a
Yeah.
good tracking device,
Big help.
and whether it's something you might wanna tell, DGA about, so, DCA, so maybe it's something that other agencies could use. Think about how it works.
Yeah.
And see how it
See how it
works,
works,
but then
right.
beyond that, I mean, having developed it might well be something that
Good idea.
Dennis could spread elsewhere. Maybe the place to do it is to tell DeWitt about it. I don't know the answer to my suggestion, but it seems to me it might be something that others could use and others of, and I'd look at a like size, cause again, I would agree with you that the police department probably has whatever it has, although they might be able to use it too, but smaller agencies might very well be
Most
able
helpful.
to use it to be more efficient and to, the thing that, the light bulb went off was what tracking vendors and tracking bills. That probably, because not everybody's gonna have a chief financial officer of a certain size, but
Right.
it might make good sense,
Right.
but think about it.
Yeah.
We can talk about later, so
Yeah.
see how I can do
See
something.
how it works.
Yes.
I mean, I think you first have to put it in place
Right.
and give it a couple of months, and then talk about
Right.
how well it is and see whether or not anybody wants your assistance in creating it for
Yeah.
themselves.
Okay.
It's a good
Yes.
Anyway,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
You're great, Darren.
Thank you for this big Christmas gift.
Now you can pull your sweater on the way out. You can like drop the mic.
Oh.
Battery died.
And it's a wonderful toy, thank you for the toy. This was a lovely toy. Oh, it sings!
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
That's the sweater, not the database.
Okay, that's it
Do
for
you
the
dance
agenda.
as well?
This year, next time, I'm trying to code in it. Thank you.
Imagine if that goes off in the cell.
That's so, are we,
Or
not
no,
yet,
we haven't
Dennis.
closed
Oh.
the meeting yet, I don't think.
All right, if there's no other business, I
Move.
adjourn, I move to adjourn the
I
last
second,
meeting of
I
the
agree.
EEPC for the year of 2018.
Our last meeting, yay!
Yay.
Yay.